Donovan's hand trembled as he gripped the doorknob of his own house, the house he had not seen in 10 long years. Snow fell softly around him, collecting on his shoulders, but he barely felt the cold. What he felt instead was something far worse, something that made his blood run ice cold in his veins. Through the door, through the walls of the home he had worked himself to the bone to pay for, came sounds that no husband should ever have to hear. Laughter. A man's deep voice. Then his wife's voice, Celeste's voice, breathy and intimate in a way that was unmistakable. The sound of footsteps rushing up the stairs, a door slamming. Then silence, followed by noises that made Donovan's stomach turn violently. His Christmas surprise had turned into a nightmare, and he stood frozen on his own doorstep, his heart shattering into 1,000 pieces as the truth crashed down on him like an avalanche. Before we continue with what happened next, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button, share it with someone who loves dramatic stories, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Also, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you all around the world. Now, let's go back to the beginning and see how Donovan ended up at that door, listening to his entire world crumble around him. 10 years, a decade. That's how long Donovan had been working overseas in Dubai, sacrificing everything for what he believed was the good of his family. He remembered the day he left like it was yesterday, even though it felt like a lifetime ago. Celeste had cried at the airport, clinging to him, begging him not to go. They had only been married for 2 years at that point, and the thought of being apart had seemed unbearable to both of them. But the opportunity had been too good to pass up. The construction company in Dubai was offering 3 times what he made in Ohio, and they desperately needed the money. Celeste had just been laid off from her job at the elementary school, and the bills were piling up faster than they could count them. "It's only for a couple of years," Donovan had promised her, wiping away her tears with his thumbs as they stood in the airport terminal. 3 years maximum. We'll save every penny, pay off the house, and then I'll come home and we'll start our family. We'll finally have the life we've always dreamed of." But 3 years had turned into 5. Then 5 had turned into 7. Every time Donovan planned to return, something came up. A promotion that meant even more money, a bonus structure that was too lucrative to walk away from. The cost of living in America kept rising, and the more he sent home to Celeste, the more he convinced himself he needed to stay just a little longer. He video called her every single day without fail. He sent money home twice a month, generous amounts that should have made their life comfortable. He bought her gifts for every occasion, expensive jewelry and designer handbags that he had shipped directly to their house in Cleveland. Orchestrated narrative arc with emotional depth and foreshadowing elements. "I'm building up the backstory well. Now I need to show more of their relationship over video calls, his dedication, and then the decision to surprise her. I should add emotional depth about how he felt about being away, maybe some moments that should have raised red flags but he missed. Then build to his decision to come home for Christmas as a surprise." Celeste always seemed happy on their video calls. She would show him around the house, showing off the renovations she had done with the money he sent. She had redone the kitchen with marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. She had converted the spare bedroom into a home gym. She had landscaped the backyard with a beautiful stone patio and a fountain. "For when you come home," she would say with a smile that made his heart ache with longing. "For when we can finally enjoy this place together." Looking back now, standing in the snow outside that same house, Donovan wondered how he had been so blind. There had been signs, hadn't there? Small things that he had dismissed because he trusted her completely, because he loved her with every fiber of his being. Like how she had started being unavailable during certain hours, claiming she had joined a book club that met 3 times a week. Or how she had suddenly become interested in working out, spending hours at the gym when she had never been particularly athletic before. Or how sometimes, in the background of their video calls, he would hear sounds in the house that she would quickly explain away. A neighbor helping with repairs, a plumber fixing a leak, a friend dropping by unexpectedly. Donovan had believed every word because the alternative was unthinkable. This was Celeste. His Celeste. The woman who had vowed to love him through sickness and health, for richer or poorer, until death do them part. The woman who cried every time they said goodbye on their video calls, telling him how much she missed him, how empty the bed felt without him, how she counted down the days until he would return. But this year, Donovan had decided he was done counting days. It was early November when he made the decision. He had been sitting in his small apartment in Dubai, watching Celeste through the screen of his laptop, and something inside him had just snapped. He couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't spend another holiday season alone, another birthday apart, another anniversary separated by 8,000 miles and a computer screen. He had enough money saved. More than enough. They could live comfortably for years on what he had put away. It was time to go home. It was time to finally start the life they had been postponing for a decade. The idea came to him in the middle of the night. He wouldn't tell Celeste he was coming home. He would surprise her. It would be the most romantic gesture of his life. He would show up on Christmas Eve, when she least expected it, and sweep her into his arms. He could picture her face, the shock and joy and tears of happiness. They would spend Christmas together for the first time in 10 years, and it would be perfect. It would be the beginning of their new life together, the life they had sacrificed so much for. Donovan had planned everything meticulously. He had handed in his resignation, worked his notice period, and booked a flight that would get him to Cleveland on Christmas Eve. He had arranged for a car service to pick him up from the airport because Celeste had mentioned that their old car had finally died, and she had gotten a new one. He had even bought her the perfect gift, a diamond necklace that had cost him 3 months' salary, something that would show her how much these 10 years of sacrifice had been worth it. The flight had been torture. 14 hours of anticipation, of nervousness, of excitement so intense he could barely sit still. He had imagined their reunion 1,000 different ways. He had practiced what he would say. He had even teared up thinking about holding her again, smelling her perfume, feeling her warmth against him after so many years of cold, empty nights. The car service had dropped him off at the end of their street because he wanted to walk up to the house, wanted to savor the moment. It was almost 8 in the evening, and the neighborhood was beautiful. Every house decorated with Christmas lights and wreaths. Snow was falling gently, creating a scene straight out of a movie. Their house looked particularly beautiful. Celeste had clearly spent a fortune on decorations. The entire front was covered in twinkling white lights, and there was a massive wreath on the front door. But then Donovan had noticed something that made his steps slow. There was another car in the driveway, a sleek black Mercedes that he didn't recognize. For a moment, he told himself it was probably nothing. Maybe Celeste was having a Christmas party with friends. Maybe it was a relative visiting. But something in his gut twisted uncomfortably, and his hands began to sweat despite the cold. He had approached the house quietly, his heart pounding. The living room curtains were drawn, but light spilled out from the edges. He could hear music playing softly inside. Christmas music, ironically. Then he heard the laughter. Celeste's laugh, the one he knew so well, but there was something different about it. Something intimate. And then the man's voice, low and familiar in a way that made Donovan's skin crawl. He had reached for the doorknob with shaking hands, using the key he had kept all these years. and that's when he heard it. The footsteps rushing up the stairs, his wife's voice calling out something he couldn't quite make out. A door slamming. And then those sounds, those unmistakable sounds that confirmed his worst nightmare was real. Donovan stood there, his hand still on the doorknob, his suitcase abandoned in the snow beside him, and felt his entire world collapsing. Should he burst in? Should he confront them? Should he turn around and walk away? His mind was racing, his heart was breaking, and the sounds from inside continued, each one like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. The diamond necklace in his pocket suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. And then, through his shock and pain and rage, Donovan heard something else. A sound coming from upstairs that made his blood turn to ice and his decision crystal clear. He turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. The door swung open silently, and Donovan stepped into his own home like a stranger, like an intruder. The warmth hit him first. The familiar scent of the cinnamon candles Celeste always loved mixed with something else, an expensive cologne that definitely wasn't his. The Christmas tree stood in the corner of the living room, decorated beautifully with ornaments he had sent from Dubai over the years, each one a reminder of a holiday they had spent apart. 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table, both half empty, lipstick stains on one of them. A man's jacket was draped over the back of the couch, casual and comfortable like it belonged there. Donovan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. The sounds from upstairs had stopped, replaced by voices, muffled and distant. He stood in the entryway, snow melting off his coat and forming a puddle on the hardwood floors Celeste had installed 3 years ago. The floors he had paid for. Everything in this house he had paid for. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every comfortable convenience. And this was what his sacrifice had bought him. Part of him wanted to storm up those stairs right now, to kick down the bedroom door and confront them both. But another part of him, the part that had kept him going through 10 years of loneliness and hard work, needed to see for himself. Needed to confirm what he already knew in his heart. So he moved quietly through the living room, his feet barely making a sound on those expensive floors, and climbed the stairs one slow step at a time. The hallway upstairs was dark, except for a sliver of light coming from beneath the master bedroom door. Their bedroom. The room where he and Celeste had spent their wedding night, where they had made love for the first time as husband and wife, where they had dreamed together about their future. Donovan approached that door like a man walking to his own execution, each step heavier than the last. He could hear them clearly now. Celeste's voice, soft and affectionate. "We should probably get dressed. I told you. We can't be careless." A man's voice responded, deeper and smoother than Donovan's own. "You worry too much. He's thousands of miles away, living his best life in Dubai. He's probably forgotten what you even look like by now." Celeste laughed, actually laughed. "Don't be mean, Trevor. Donovan is a good man. He's just not here." Trevor. The name hit Donovan like a punch to the gut. Trevor was supposed to be their neighbor, the guy who lived 3 houses down, the guy Celeste had mentioned casually in their video calls over the years. "Trevor helped me move some furniture today. Trevor recommended a great plumber. Trevor thinks we should trim the oak tree before winter." Donovan had even thanked Trevor once during a video call when the man happened to be in the background, thanked him for being such a helpful neighbor while Donovan was away. The rage that flooded through Donovan's veins was unlike anything he had ever felt. His vision actually blurred red at the edges. His breathing came in short, sharp gasps. For 10 years he had worked himself to exhaustion, sending every extra dollar home, denying himself every comfort and pleasure, all so Celeste could live well. And she had been living well, just not the way he had imagined. He didn't knock. He didn't announce himself. He simply turned the handle and pushed the door open. The scene that greeted him would be burned into his memory forever. Celeste was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing a silk robe he had never seen before, her hair tousled and her face flushed. Trevor was beside her, shirtless, looking comfortable and relaxed like he belonged there. They both froze when they saw Donovan standing in the doorway, his face a mask of devastation and fury. The silence that followed was deafening. Celeste's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, no sound coming out. All the color drained from her face. Trevor had the decency to look shocked and uncomfortable, reaching for his shirt. But Donovan's eyes were locked on his wife, the woman he had loved for 12 years, the woman he had sacrificed everything for. "Donovan?" Celeste finally whispered, her voice trembling. She stood up quickly, pulling the robe tighter around herself. "What are you doing here? You didn't say you were coming home." The question was so absurd, so completely disconnected from the reality of the situation, that Donovan actually let out a bitter laugh. "What am I doing here?" he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "This is my house, Celeste. The house I've been paying for while I worked myself to death 8,000 miles away. The question is, what is he doing here? In our bedroom? In our bed?" Trevor had the sense to stand up and start putting on his clothes quickly. "Look, man, I think I should go—" "Don't you dare move!" Donovan cut him off, his voice like steel. "Don't you dare move an inch! You've been sleeping with my wife. The least you can do is stand there and face me like a man." Celeste moved toward Donovan, her hands outstretched. "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think. Not what I think." Donovan's voice rose now, all the pain and betrayal pouring out. "I heard you, Celeste. I stood outside this house, the house I bought for us, and I heard you with another man, on Christmas Eve, while I was coming home to surprise you. To finally start our life together, you were up here with him." Tears were streaming down Celeste's face now. "You don't understand. You left me alone for 10 years, Donovan. 10 years. Do you know what that's like? Do you know how lonely I've been?" "I left to provide for us," Donovan shouted, his composure finally breaking. "Everything I did was for you. Every grueling day in the desert heat, every holiday I spent alone, every night I went to bed aching for you. It was all for us, for our future. And this is what you do with that sacrifice?" Trevor cleared his throat awkwardly. "Maybe I really should." "How long?" Donovan interrupted, still staring at Celeste. "How long has this been going on?" Celeste looked down at the floor, unable to meet his eyes. That silence told him everything he needed to know, but he needed to hear it. He needed the truth, no matter how much it would destroy him. "How long, Celeste?" he repeated, his voice breaking. She looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. 5 years, she whispered. 5 years. Half of the time he had been gone. Donovan felt his knees almost give out. He gripped the doorframe to steady himself. 5 years, he repeated numbly. 5 years you've been lying to me. 5 years of I love you, and I miss you, and come home soon. 5 years of me killing myself to send you money while you were here playing house with him. It wasn't like that, Celeste sobbed. I do love you, Donovan. I never stopped loving you. But you weren't here. You chose Dubai over me. You chose money over us. The accusation stung, because there was a grain of truth in it, and Donovan knew it. But that didn't justify what she had done. Nothing could justify this betrayal. I need you both out of my house, Donovan said quietly, his voice hollow. Right now. This is my house too, Celeste protested. You can't just kick me out. Watch me. Donovan's voice was ice cold now. Get dressed. Get out, both of you. I don't want to see either of your faces right now. Trevor was already dressed and heading for the door, clearly eager to escape the situation. But as he passed Donovan, he paused and said something that made Donovan's blood run cold. "For what it's worth, man, she really does care about you. She talks about you all the time, about the life insurance policy you took out before you left, about how well you've been doing financially. She's just been waiting for the right time." Donovan's head snapped toward Trevor. "What did you just say?" Trevor's eyes widened as he realized he had said too much. "Nothing, man. I didn't say anything." He hurried past Donovan and down the stairs. But Donovan had heard him clearly. Life insurance policy. Waiting for the right time. His mind was racing now, connecting dots he hadn't even known existed. He turned slowly back to Celeste, who had gone completely pale. "What did he mean by that?" Donovan asked quietly. "Nothing," Celeste said quickly, too quickly. "He doesn't know what he's talking about. Trevor's an idiot." But Donovan was thinking now, really thinking. He remembered setting up that life insurance policy right before he left for Dubai, a massive policy that would pay out $5 million if anything happened to him. Celeste was the sole beneficiary. He had done it to protect her, to make sure she would be taken care of if something happened to him overseas. At the time, it had seemed like the responsible thing to do. "You've been waiting for me to die," Donovan said slowly, the realization hitting him like a freight train. "That's what he meant, isn't it? You've been waiting for me to die so you could collect the insurance money and be with him." "That's insane!" Celeste shouted. "You're being paranoid." But Donovan was already pulling out his phone, his hands shaking. Something Trevor said had triggered a memory, something that hadn't made sense at the time, but suddenly did. 2 months ago, Celeste had insisted he go skydiving with some co-workers in Dubai. She had brought it up multiple times on their video calls, talking about how it would be such an amazing experience, how he deserved to do something fun and exciting. He had thought it was sweet at the time, her encouraging him to enjoy himself. Now, the suggestion took on a sinister tone. And then there was the time 6 months before that when she had sent him information about a helicopter tour company in Dubai, practically begging him to book it. "You only live once," she had said cheerfully. "You should experience everything while you're there." Donovan looked at his wife with new eyes, seeing a stranger where he had once seen love. "Oh my God," he breathed. "You've been trying to get me killed." Celeste's face crumbled. "No, Donovan, no, you're twisting everything." "Get out," Donovan said, his voice deadly calm. "Get out of my house right now, or I swear to God, Celeste, I will call the police and tell them everything." "You don't have any proof of anything," Celeste screamed, hysteria creeping into her voice. "You're just upset, and you're imagining things." Donovan pulled out his phone and started recording. "Say that again. Tell me again how I'm imagining things. Tell me you haven't been sleeping with Trevor for 5 years. Tell me you haven't been encouraging me to do dangerous activities. Say it on camera." Celeste's mouth snapped shut. Her eyes darted between Donovan and the phone, calculating, weighing her options. And in that moment of hesitation, Donovan saw the truth written all over her face. The front door slammed downstairs as Trevor made his escape. But before Celeste could say anything else, before Donovan could process everything that had just been revealed, his phone rang. The screen showed his lawyer's name from Dubai, calling at an odd hour. Something in Donovan's gut told him this call was important. He answered it, still staring at Celeste. "Hello?" The lawyer's voice was urgent. "Donovan, I've been trying to reach you. There's something you need to know about your wife. I did some routine checking like you asked me 2 months ago, standard stuff for expats. I just got the results back, and you need to hear this immediately. Celeste has been trying to access your accounts in Dubai. She's made multiple attempts to transfer funds, and there's more. She's been in contact with your employer, asking questions about your work conditions, your safety protocols, your schedule. And Donovan, there's something else. She filed a missing persons report on you 3 days ago, claiming she hasn't heard from you in weeks. Donovan's blood turned to ice. He stared at Celeste, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "But we talked 2 days ago," he said into the phone, his voice hollow. "I know," the lawyer said. "That's why I'm calling. This isn't normal behavior, Donovan. Combined with everything else, you need to be very careful. I think your wife might be planning something." The phone nearly slipped from Donovan's hand. A missing persons report. Filed 3 days ago, while he was on his way home, while he was planning his Christmas surprise. The pieces were falling into place now, forming a picture so horrifying that Donovan could barely process it. "She was planning to kill me," he said aloud, not even realizing he was speaking. "She was going to claim I went missing, that something happened to me in Dubai, and collect the insurance money. That's why she filed the report before I even got here. She was establishing a timeline." Celeste's face went white as a sheet. "That's not true!" she screamed. "You're crazy! You're absolutely crazy!" But Donovan wasn't listening to her anymore. He was thinking about the Mercedes in the driveway, the expensive renovations, the designer clothes Celeste had been wearing on their video calls. She had been spending money like she already had millions in the bank. Because in her mind, she already did. She was just waiting for him to die first. "I'm calling the police," Donovan said, his voice surprisingly steady given that his entire world had just exploded. "I'm calling them right now." That's when Celeste did something that shocked him to his core. She smiled. Actually smiled. A cold, calculating smile that he had never seen on her face before. "Go ahead," she said calmly, all traces of hysteria gone from her voice. "Call them. Tell them your wife had an affair. Tell them you think she tried to kill you. See how far that gets you without any real proof. It's your word against mine, Donovan. And I've been establishing myself in this community for 10 years while you've been gone. I volunteer at the church. I'm on the PTA at the local school. Everyone knows me, everyone loves me. You're just the husband who abandoned his wife for a decade to chase money overseas." Donovan stared at this woman, this stranger wearing his wife's face, and realized with absolute clarity that she meant every word. She had planned this. All of it, and she was confident she would get away with it. "You really are a monster," he whispered. Celeste's smile widened. "No, darling. I'm just a woman who got tired of waiting for a life that was never going to happen. You were supposed to come home in 3 years. Then it was 5, then 7, then 10. When was it going to end, Donovan? When were you going to stop choosing work over me? I decided to take matters into my own hands and build the life I wanted. And if you had just died in some unfortunate accident like you were supposed to, none of this messiness would be happening right now." She had actually said it, out loud, admitted that she wanted him dead. Donovan's finger was still on the record button on his phone, and he had captured every word. But before he could say anything, before he could even process this confession, Celeste's expression changed. Her eyes widened in what looked like genuine fear, and she looked past Donovan toward the hallway. "Who are you?" she gasped. Donovan spun around and saw a figure standing in the shadows of the hallway, a figure that had apparently been there the entire time, listening to everything. As the person stepped into the light, Donovan's heart nearly stopped. It was a woman in a police uniform, and she was holding up a badge. The police officer stepped fully into the light, and Donovan could see she was young, maybe in her early 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She looked directly at Celeste with an expression of barely concealed disgust. "Detective Linda Kowalski, Cleveland PD," she said, her voice firm and professional. and I've heard enough. Celeste Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted fraud, and filing a false police report. Celeste's face went from pale to ghost white. What? No, this is insane. You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything. But Detective Kowalski was already moving forward, pulling out handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Wait, Donovan interrupted, his head spinning. I don't understand. How are you here? How did you know? Detective Kowalski glanced at him, while securing the handcuffs on a now sobbing Celeste. Your lawyer in Dubai contacted the FBI yesterday when he discovered the missing persons report. Given the international nature of the case and the insurance fraud implications, they contacted us. We've been investigating your wife for the past 18 hours. When we discovered you had actually landed in Cleveland this evening, we put surveillance on your house. I was parked down the street when you arrived. I followed you in and heard everything. She held up her own phone. And I recorded everything, including her confession to planning your murder. Donovan's legs finally gave out, and he sat down hard on the bed, the same bed where his wife had betrayed him with another man. His mind was reeling, trying to process everything that had happened in the last hour. He had come home expecting romance and reunion, and instead he had uncovered a plot to end his life. There's more, Detective Kowalski continued, her voice gentler now as she looked at Donovan. We executed a search warrant on your house while you were confronting your wife. My colleagues found extensive evidence in her home office, emails between Celeste and Trevor discussing your life insurance policy, research into untraceable poisons, flight records showing Trevor made 3 trips to Dubai over the past year, staying in hotels near your workplace. We believe they were surveilling you, looking for opportunities. Donovan felt bile rise in his throat. Trevor was in Dubai, following me? We're bringing him in for questioning as we speak, the detective confirmed. He won't get far. We have his car under surveillance, and units are moving to intercept him now. Celeste had stopped sobbing and was now glaring at Donovan with pure hatred. You ruined everything, she screamed. Everything! We had it all planned perfectly. You were supposed to die in Dubai. Some random accident, a robbery gone wrong, anything. We had it all figured out. But you just had to come home early, didn't you? You just had to ruin it. Keep talking, Detective Kowalski said dryly. You're making our case even stronger. Another officer appeared in the doorway, a burly man with a thick mustache. Detective, we found the documents. She had forged papers ready to declare him dead, insurance claim forms already filled out, even travel brochures for a honeymoon in the Maldives with Trevor dated for February. This was all planned down to the last detail. Donovan buried his face in his hands. The woman he had loved, the woman he had sacrificed 10 years of his life for, had been planning to murder him and run off with his life insurance money. Every "I love you" had been a lie. Every "I miss you" had been manipulation. Every video call where she had smiled and told him about her day had been a performance, while she plotted his death. Mr. Morrison, Detective Kowalski said gently, I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement. Can you do that? Donovan nodded numbly, not trusting himself to speak. As the detective led Celeste toward the stairs, his wife turned back one last time. You know what the funny thing is, Donovan? She said, her voice dripping with venom. I really did love you once. When we first got married, I loved you so much it hurt. But then you left. You chose money over me. You chose Dubai over our marriage. You called it sacrifice. But all I felt was abandoned. So yes, I found someone who was actually here for me. Someone who didn't just promise to come home someday, but actually showed up. And when I realized you were never really coming back, when I understood that you'd always choose one more year, one more promotion, one more paycheck over me, I decided to stop waiting for a life that was never going to happen and take control of my own destiny. You did this to us, Donovan. Your choices destroyed our marriage long before I ever did. The words hit Donovan like physical blows, because buried deep within the lies and manipulation, there was a kernel of truth. He had chosen to stay in Dubai year after year. He had prioritized money over presence. He had convinced himself he was building a future while his marriage died in the present. That didn't excuse what Celeste had done, not even remotely. Planning to murder someone was evil, pure and simple. But Donovan couldn't escape the reality that his own choices had set this tragedy in motion. "Take her away," Detective Kowalski ordered, and Celeste was led down the stairs and out of the house. Donovan sat alone in the bedroom, surrounded by the ruins of his life. The diamond necklace was still in his pocket, a Christmas gift for a woman who had wanted him dead. The irony was so bitter, he almost laughed. Detective Kowalski returned a few minutes later and sat down in the chair across from the bed. "Are you okay?" she asked, which was perhaps the most absurd question possible under the circumstances. "No," Donovan said honestly. "I'm really not." "For what it's worth," the detective said quietly, "I've been doing this job for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of bad people do a lot of terrible things. What your wife did, what she planned, that's genuinely evil. But I also need you to know something. We found her journals. She's been documenting everything for years, probably for some sick insurance policy of her own. And in those early entries, before things went dark, she wrote about how much she loved you, how much she missed you, how lonely she was. I'm not excusing what she became, but I think there was a moment where this could have gone differently. A moment where if you had come home, if you had chosen her over the money, things might not have ended like this." Donovan felt tears streaming down his face. "I know," he whispered. "I know I failed her. I failed us. I just never imagined it would lead to this." "Most people don't," Detective Kowalski said. "That's the tragedy of it. We make choices that seem reasonable at the time, and we don't see the consequences until it's too late." She stood up. "Come on, let's get you to the station. You can give your statement, and then we'll get you set up with victim services. You're going to need support getting through this." As Donovan followed her down the stairs and out of the house, he took one last look at the home he had worked so hard to pay for. The Christmas tree lights were still twinkling. The wine glasses still sat on the coffee table, and somewhere upstairs was the bed where his wife had betrayed him. This was supposed to be the happiest Christmas of his life, the reunion he had dreamed about for 10 years. Instead, it was the night his entire world had burned to the ground. The snow was falling harder now, covering the footprints he had made when he first arrived, erasing the evidence that he had ever walked up to that door full of hope and love and excitement. Donovan got into the back of the police car, and as they pulled away from the house, he saw neighbors peering out their windows, wondering what was happening. By tomorrow, the whole street would know. By next week, the whole city would be talking about it. 3 months later, Donovan sat in a courtroom and watched as Celeste and Trevor were both sentenced to 25 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted fraud. Celeste cried on the stand, begging for mercy, claiming she had been driven temporarily insane by loneliness. Trevor tried to claim he had been manipulated by Celeste, that he hadn't known the full extent of her plans. The jury didn't believe either of them. When the judge read the sentence, Celeste looked directly at Donovan one last time. There was no hatred in her eyes anymore, no venom or anger, just sadness and regret, and a loss so profound it seemed to age her 10 years in an instant. Donovan felt that same loss reflected in his own heart. After the trial, Donovan sold the house in Cleveland. He couldn't stand to be in it anymore, couldn't walk through those rooms without seeing ghosts of what might have been. He moved to a small town in Montana, as far from Dubai and Cleveland as he could get, and bought a modest cabin by a lake. The life insurance policy he had taken out was still active, and the irony wasn't lost on him that Celeste would spend decades in prison thinking about the money she would have gotten if she had just been patient, if she had just waited for him to actually come home. But the real punishment, Donovan knew, wasn't the prison sentence. It was the knowledge that they had both destroyed something beautiful. They had taken a love that had once been real and pure and full of promise, and they had let it wither and die through neglect and betrayal and terrible choices. Celeste had become a monster, but Donovan had helped create the circumstances that allowed that transformation to happen. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after the worst night of his life, Donovan sat on his porch watching the snow fall over the Montana mountains. He thought about the man he had been, the man who had believed that money and sacrifice were the same thing as love. He thought about the woman Celeste had been when they first met, bright and kind and full of dreams. And he mourned for both of those people because they were gone now, destroyed by choices that had seemed so right at the time, but had led them both to hell. The diamond necklace sat in a drawer in his cabin, still in its box, never given. Donovan kept it as a reminder that the most expensive gifts mean nothing if you're not there to give them yourself. That presence is worth more than any paycheck. That love, real love, requires more than money and video calls and promises of someday. He had learned the hardest lesson of his life, but he had learned it too late. And as the snow fell and Christmas Eve turned into Christmas Day, Donovan whispered a prayer for the life he had lost, the marriage he had destroyed through absence, and the woman who had destroyed herself through hatred. They were both prisoners now, one behind bars and one trapped in the wreckage of what might have been. And in the quiet of that Montana night, with nothing but regret and wisdom bought at the highest price, Donovan finally understood what he should have known all along, that you can't buy back time, you can't sacrifice the present for the future without consequences. And the greatest tragedy isn't the betrayal itself, but all the moments before it where different choices could have saved everything.